Welcome back, guys. It's your host Maverick here with another episode of Listeners. So, as we continue on our journey alongside Mew and Echo to find out all they can find out about this mysterious Jimmy Stonefree character, in the last episode we resolved a situation that was definitely more American teen angst inspired, you could say. The story was kind of questionable, although it was still kind of fun throughout, and well, we already know that this is not exactly going for the serious route, right? And at the end of last episode, they also pretty much give a hint as to where they're going to in this one. Now, they're apparently trying to find someone by the name of Denka. Now, I'm not quite sure if Denka is actually his name, or it actually is the Japanese word Denka, which is Your Highness, right? Especially considering that the dude that they're looking for seems to be quite the character. I wouldn't be surprised if he was some kind of gang lord or something like that. So, with that in mind, let's just jump right in and see what's up. Alright, let's begin in 3, 2, 1, play. Project Freedom. Fearless Core. Wait, oh, this is a flashback, right? Jimmy Stonefree. That's his voice? Right. What in the world am I looking at? Oh. Well, quite the interesting character, I gotta say. I really have no idea what to think of all this. But, I mean, might as well go along with the ride, right? Good thing I got some beverages with me. This is Suntory L, actually. I feel like watching a series such as this requires some substances, let's say. I mean, it's not even a case where the series is so bad it's good. It's just, I know. It's kind of like Carol and Tuesday, which I also did on my channel, which is a music series from a few seasons ago, which had a lot of potential going into it as well. And I love the music, I love the world. It's just the stories themselves and the very unique characters that they meet along the way. It's kind of puts it out of it a little bit. It's definitely appealing to a certain demographic, let's say. Windows. Oh, Prince. I see. Right. Or Denka's new project. You guys are totally a couple already, aren't you? Everyone can become sexy. Alright. So like I said, this is with the episode title, seems that this is obviously a reference to Prince the musician, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago. R.I.P. Wait, what? What? Wait. Was that like a sort of metaphor for oh, he's so isolated from he's so isolated from everything. Actually, should I even call him a he? Denka is so isolated that you know, he's out of touch with reality. Okay, she's a natural at it. Oh. These two have completely forgotten about. He's gonna go into that place and meet Mew, isn't he? The red light district. He got swindled.
もっと楽しそうにしたらどうだい？
いえ、どなたですか？
きっとそう呼んでくれ。
Isn't this Dinka?
キッドさん。
Let's go crazy! このパークは人々を引きつけるのさ。色とりどりに染まった人々をね。顔にはトレジャーなスマイル、心には深いプレジャーが刻まれてるだろう。どこへ行くのか尋ねてごらん。どこへも行かないよって答えるはずさ。だって僕らは永住権を手に入れたんだ、このペイズリーパークのね。ジミストンフリー。
What is Paisley Park a reference to?
すごいプレイヤーなんです。
Bletchley Park?
まるで幻みたいな。
幻なんかじゃない。僕見たんです。10年前、リバチェスタで。
リバチェスタか。
殿下って人なら知ってるって。でもあんな宮殿に住んでいる人に簡単に会えるわけないんですけど。
君はどうしたいの？憧れのジミに会って。
わかりません。でも
導いてほしいんだね。わかるよ、僕もさ。こんな虚しい世界を救いたい、それだけだった。
キッドさん。
悲しませるつもりも苦しめるつもりもなかった。でももう愛は動かない。だけど君の輝きには愛を感じるよ。その子のことさ。だって街を出たのも旅を続けたのもその子と出会ったから、その子といたかったから、そうだろう。
Echo, aren't you at least... Okay, I presume that he talked about everything in regards to me to him.
ラブセクシー。
おごりだ。さあ、愛を語っておいで。
いや、ここって。
じゃあまた会おうね、ボーイナイ。
It's gonna be Mew, isn't it? 100.
よろしくお願いします。男って本当ありえないわ。給料もらってすぐここに来る？誤解だって。知らなかったんだ、ミュウがいるなんて。じゃあ相手が違う女の子だったらどうしたのさ。それはねえ、お二人さん。ちょっといいところに行かない？ファーストアベニュー？そうよ。普段はエクイプメント同士の興行が行われるコロシアムよ。ガール6、あなたプレイヤーでしょ？で、ボーイ9がアークビルダー。私たちも同じプレイヤー。
A Marshall stack.
殿下に会いたいんでしょ？勝ったら会わせてあげる。
Vox versus Marshall.
負けたらこの町から出て行ってもらうわ。あんたらみたいなポットでのプレイヤーが即デビューなんて許せないのよね。即デビュー？何のことやらよくわかんないけど、受けて立つニュー。
Well, I mean, at least we get some sort of battle. It's fine with me.
銀行に預けてるようなもんよ。
今度の給料で返してくださいね。
そういうこともあるわな。で、ファーストアベニューはどうだって？
ガチでボコボコでしたよ。
Oh, really? Hey, look. There's an amp there. I mean, not an amp. There's a pedal there.
中でも無敗の女帝ウェンディ&リサに挑むとはいい度胸だ。殺されなかっただけでもめっけもんだぜ。
あのウェンディとリサだったなんて。だいたい格好だってメーカーと全然違うし。
じゃあこっから出ていくのかい？
いいえ。悔しいのかしら？じゃあ荷物をまとめてもらうわ。お願いします。1週間後もう一度戦ってください。あんた。僕たちにはどうしても殿下さんに会う必要があるんです。だからお願いします。気持ちいいわね、ボーイナイン。どうする気？ガール6。はい、次は勝ちます。気に入ったわ。じゃあ次は派手に決めましょう。殿下に会いたかっただけなのにこんなことになっちゃって。いいじゃない。このまま街を出ていくわけにはいかないんだから。でも今度また負けたら。そのつもりないから。勝負に勝って殿下に会っ
masks.
どうするつもりだ。
戦って分かったわ。一つのエクイプメント、二人で交互に操る特殊な操縦法に強さがあると。戦い方のリズムというか、流れが読めない。
They're really just blasting through all this, right? Like, this has some potential to be very
二人二人の間に途切れる。
unique
考えてもダメ
and
勉強じゃないよ。ただ世界に革命を。
you know, I
気をつければいいと僕
I posited before that they might be able to use pedals and whatnot to
愛と憎しみは死
sort of enhance or switch around their powers and whatnot. But they're really just blasting through all this
そうじゃないよ。
immediately.
君たちは君たちのままでいい。あとは向かい合うだけ。楽しみだね。きっと見に行くよ。ミュウか。やっとわかったよ。あのペンダントは君のもの。そうだね。時は流れた。僕らも新しいことを始める時期だ。足りなかったのはやはり愛。新しい愛には革命が必要だ。
ずいぶんと余裕じゃねえか。
ねえ、俺様は勝負しよう。当然、ウェンディー&リサに全額で。
勝ったら借金返せよ。
当たり前や。
今度逃げたらガチ
Oh, this guy's in for it.
どうしようどうしよう。ただ勝つだけよ。あんたがあの夜土下座してまで作ってくれたチャンス、今度は負けないよ。そうだね、行こうミュウ。
Well, oh, come on. Let's have at least a nice little battle here. Thank us watching.
え、あれってヒットさん？
リーダーが欲しいと君は言う。でも決断できずにいる。迷いを捨てたらどうだい？紫の雨の中で微笑んでいる。
And Purple Rain.
私はリーダーじゃない。
Yet another Prince reference.
褒める旋律の貴公子。
ヒットさんが殿下だったの？
見せてくれ。互いの愛を。さあ、祈りを捧げよう。愛に
Okay.
行くわよ、覚悟。
Oh my god. I think I need a little bit more to drink here. Ooh. Boom. That was it. That was kind of.
動き出した。
Airless?
耳なし？なんで？やるしかない。やるわね。ウェンディ、見せてあげるわ。リサ。
ミュウ、やはり君は地味の。
Jimmy's child?
見ろ、この10年の間、僕たちが求めていた革命が再び動き出したんだ。足りてなかったのは愛。うわぁ！殿下のエクイプメントが反応している。あの耳出しに。違う、あの二人の力に。だー。
キリがないわ。ミュウ、そのペンダント。ええ、何かに共鳴してるみたい。一気に型をつけましょう。
That's pretty epic, I gotta say. And the background music yet again.
すまなかった君たちを試すようなことを10年前のことだ。すべてを教えよう。僕とジミストン・フリーが出会い別れるまでに過ごした15日と7時間のこと。10年前のことだ。リバチェスタで行われたフェスの音が知っているだろう。プロジェクトフリーダム。世界の脅威である耳なしを我々の手で殲滅するためには耳なしのコアを誘導する必要があった。そしてそれには耳なしと共存を求めていた人々の協力が不可欠。もちろん彼らにミミナシを占領するためにオビキ出して欲しいと頼むわけにもいかなかった。でも、遅かった。作戦は動き始めていた。時代は君らのものだ。知っていることはそれだけだ。あれから彼に会ってない。傷ついた彼を連れノームの民も消えた。行かせてあげたいな。そう、
So Jimmy wants to coexist peacefully with the earless. Oh, little sister. Oh, is Mew his little sister? Alright. Yeah. You know, I honestly... this is probably the part that I am most looking forward to every single episode. Man, the art and music, just... Ooh, I like this one. Well, alright. See you guys after this. Alrighty, so yet again, quite the interesting episode for listeners, although even though it's sort of wacky on the story side, I will have to admit it put a lot of detail and little sort of Easter eggs, if you will, within the story for us to find, all going back to the artist Prince, right? So let's just talk about that first, because I don't really think there's too much to talk about for the episode itself. I think my biggest takeaway from this is something that I already mentioned before, and it is that they are trying to really rush along the story, right? So even though a lot of these things could have good development if they were fleshed out properly, it's just choosing to assume. It's assuming that us viewers can also assume some things, and just said, let's just skip the middle process and continue on, right? So it is what it is, right? I think I would prefer more to talk about all the various references to Prince here. So, obviously, just from the title alone, When Doves Cry, you should be able to make the association with Prince. Now, first of all, I gotta be honest here, I'm not that familiar with Prince the artist, because, well, no disrespect, he's a great artist and a great guitarist, but his music is not generally something that I listen to, right? Even so, any sort of person who does have a sort of interest in music, particularly rock music, American music, or as a guitarist or whatnot, would have to know about Prince, right? When Doves Cry, Purple Rain, those are the classics, and probably Kiss as well. You gotta know these things, right? So it just by saying When Doves Cry, okay, it's instantly Prince, right? And Purple Rain, they actually do refer to it a little bit as well. If you guys recall, during the scene where Kid was basically when all the earless show up, and then we got Kid starting to power up his own equipment and all that whatnot. The background music that was playing there was definitely inspired by Purple Rain, just as the background music from the last episode was inspired by Smells Like Teen Spirit. So they do, the music composer for this series, Jin, he is definitely incorporating a lot of these references directly into the music, and that is definitely something that I can appreciate very, very much here. And by the way, so the Denka is indeed a mistranslation. I went back and looked at the recruitment poster. So Denka actually refers to Your Highness, so it is not, as the subtitles would lead you to believe, a capitalized D and his name, right? It's not his name. His name is Kid. Denka is basically his honorific, right? Which kind of fits in with someone who's called Prince, right? It kind of sort of makes sense on that note, even though Prince is not really a nickname but his actual name, I believe. Is that so? Yeah, I think his actual name was Prince. Although those who are more familiar with him could correct me if I am wrong. And like I said, I'm not that completely well versed in Prince himself, so there are a few references that I did not catch at first, such as Paisley Park, right? So this one is something that it appeared a little bit too much, so I knew that it had to be referring to something, but I did not realize that Paisley Park is actually the name of Prince's home, right? His home, later his studio, you could say his recording studio, and he also had a record label named Paisley Park, and now that he has passed away, his home, and indeed the studio, is now a museum, so the Paisley Park Museum, and also it's the name of a song as well, released by Prince and the Revolution. And speaking of which, this is also another cute little reference that they made here. So during this episode, they made a lot of references to love and revolution and all that. You could easily argue that that is something to do with, he's representing this sort of androgynous character. So sure, love and peace and all that, but no, it actually has references directly to Prince himself as well. The Revolution is actually his backing band that he put together, that later on became its own sort of entity as well. And in fact, there's even more references here. So the two sort of his two subordinates, the two ladies who were players, right? Now, initially, I actually thought that those two were Prince's most famous dancers. So he has two dancers working for him. L'Oreal. Well, he has lots of dancers working for him, but two of them are the most famous, L'Oreal and Robbie Lamort. So they are well, I'm not going to go into that too much, but I thought it was actually a reference to them and their long term sort of relationship with Prince, not in the romantic sense, but in the being very trusted partners of his, doing the dancing alongside him, right? But after some further digging, I do believe that I'm not only do believe, I'm 99.9% sure that the two ladies in this episode are actually a reference to two members of the band The Revolution, Wendy Melvoin and Lisa Coleman, right? And these two actually also formed a sort of duo themselves called Wendy and Lisa. And again, they are associated with Prince. They're associated with the band The Revolution, which was also mentioned. Oh, sorry. Which was also mentioned in this episode as well. And probably the smoking gun for all this is that Wendy and Lisa were actually lesbians. So so even the scene in this episode where they were basically lovers and kissing and all that, it's not just a sort of statement from this sort of environment, because obviously looking at this episode as a whole with Kid himself, I don't even know whether or not to refer to him as him, right? But still, with Kid himself being this sort of manner and this city of vice and sex and all that and freedom, you could easily argue that they wanted to just throw a lesbian scene in for the sake of it, right? However, going back to how it is referring to Prince and all the people around him, I can definitely see that is referring to those two ladies, and it actually does have a purpose in this episode. And the same with his obsession with love as well, right? Again, you could easily put that as part of Kid's character and all that, and his obsession with Jimmy and all that driving him to do this. But then again, we got to go back to see what is the archetype for this character, right? Which is Prince. And Prince himself, there's this very famous sort of not quite scandal, but I guess in nowadays you could consider it a meme, which is when Prince actually changed his name out of protest to his label, right? And so during that time he was called the artist formerly known as Prince, which is quite it's quite a popular saying. If it was actually something that happened in this day and age, I've no doubt that it would be more made into a meme, and you'd probably see it everywhere. The only reason why it's not as popular is because he did this back in the day when there was basically no internet, right? Of course there were internet, but it wasn't widespread. And so what does love have to do with this, right? Well, the thing is, when he changed his name, he actually changed it into something that was unpronounceable. He basically changed it into a symbol, which looked like basically the symbol for males and the symbol for females combined together, and it was later trademarked as love symbol. And so since you can't really pronounce it, all the media and publications didn't know how to call him, so they simply call him the artist formerly known as Prince, which is quite you gotta hand it to him. That is quite the creative way to handle this situation, and also providing sort of like a joke at the same time, right? But so this again ties back in with the episode as well, with the references to love and all that, and being a direct reference to Prince as well. So I really like them putting all this into the story, actually. Not only the music, but also all these references to characters. I would even say that they did it a lot better than the last episode, which was again a clear reference to Nirvana and Smells Like Teen Spirit. No, I guess they might have referred to some other stuff which I missed, maybe, sorta, kinda. Though I'm not gonna go back to that and look at every single little detail there. I mean, even in this episode, I'm sure that there's probably some stuff that I missed, considering I'm not that big a fan of Prince, right? And if there is, and you guys know, do let me know. But all I gotta say right now is, regardless of everything else, I do appreciate the fact that they're trying to actually build the episode based on these references and combining a lot of elements into there, right? Now, looking at basically looking at Kid himself, you could easily see the parallels to Prince as well, and then of course all the other characters. It's fun, right? So I'll give them full credit for that. Now, of course, whether or not it actually turned out into a comprehensible and enjoyable story, that is more of a question mark. But still, like I said, with enough beer, anything is watchable, right? And I gotta say, it's still enjoyable for what it was. My biggest disappointment, honestly, from this episode would still be that the battle was severely underwhelming. That is my biggest negative about this episode. I'm fine with them having a nonsensical story and all that. You know, the music is great. I love the references and all that, but still, as a sort of a mech story, you gotta give the people some better fight scenes, right? So it's 2 episodes in a row where, not only 2 episodes, 4 episodes in a row where we didn't really have any good fight scenes here between the mechs. Now, I want to see some big clashings between players and using their equipment and all that. And like I was mentioning during the episode, they literally have this great foundation of of being able to use all these pedals and whatnot to sort of power up the equipment and have basically different kind of abilities or different kind of attacking patterns and all that. Why not utilize it a little bit more, right? So if there's anything that I really implore them to change, it would be just in that. The rest, fine, right? And we're definitely, all I can say is we're definitely not here for this story. So that was it for listeners episode 5. In the next episode, they're heading off to find some other dude, the gnomes, I believe. I'm not quite sure if that's a reference to anything else, but we'll see in the next one. So hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll see you guys next time.